Hello guys, how are you all doing? For today's live session, I'd like to share a few tips on how you can travel and eventually get a job and live long term in Thailand. Many of you are wondering like how exactly can you get to Thailand and obtain a job and live here long term? Well, I want you to understand that it's not as difficult as you think. All you need to do is to plan appropriately and then you'll be on your way to Thailand. Please join the live stream, share with friends and family. I need as much participants as I can have. Okay? Share the live screen, share. Let us get started. And I'm thanking all my subscribers for the love and the support you've been showing to me for almost a year. We've crossed a very big bridge, the 1,000 subscribers. I mean, the channel is 1,000 plus, and it's all thanks to you. Okay, so let me start with the topic of the day. How do you get to travel to Thailand? The first thing you want to think of is your budget. Traveling abroad is expensive. So what you have to do is to plan on the exact amount of money you need in order to travel to Thailand. For those of you Africans, the distance between Thailand and any other country in Africa is quite far. So you might want to think of the cost of flight and of course money for hotel and other minor expenses within the kingdom. So when you think of cost here, you need to come up with an actual estimate of what you would need in order to move to Thailand. Perhaps you might be thinking of a sum of 2,000, 2,500 or 3,000 US dollars, depending on how you want to live here. So if you have your budget sorted out, you have a reasonable amount which you're willing to spend to travel, then you're set. The next thing you will have to do is to obtain a passport. Yeah, it's very important for you to get a passport because you can't travel to Thailand or any other country in the world without a passport. So try to get a passport. Apply back home. If you are at home, like for Cameroonians, you might want to go to the Ministry of National Security. Apply there to get a passport. If you are in other countries, like those of you already living overseas, then you might want to visit any Cameroonian embassy to obtain a passport there. Or if you are not a Cameroonian, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, visit the country's embassy to get a passport for yourself. After obtaining your passport, the next thing you want to do is to apply for a visa. Yeah, like I said, you can't travel without a passport. It goes the same with visa. You cannot travel to any country in the world without passport or the right visa. So if you're moving to Thailand, the first type of visa which you may easily have is a tourist visa. You go to any of the Thai embassies, you're willing to or ready to apply for a tourist visa, provided you have the right fund and of course you have copies of your passport and your travel itinerary to state why you're coming to the kingdom. There you can obtain a tourist visa that will allow you access into the country. But if you don't want to use a tourist visa, there are other options that you might want to use. You think of non-B visa. In a case where you are lucky to have an employment with a Thai employer, be it a school or a company, they will provide documents for you to go to the nearest Thai embassy and apply for a work visa there, in this case non-B. But let's keep it easy to the basics. Get a tourist visa. So most people obtain tourist visa. After a tourist visa, you book your air ticket and then you're on your way to Thailand. So that is the first stage, obtaining the passport, a visa, and of course a successful flight to the kingdom. Once you arrive at the airport in Suvarnabhumi or Don Mueang, wherever, some of you take direct flights to other airports within the country, you need to pass the immigration control. So there they will ask you, what are you doing in Thailand? If you are having a tourist visa, you have to state clearly that you are here as a tourist. Do not make the mistake to disclose to the immigration at the airport that you are in the kingdom to work. If you do that, this will jeopardize your opportunity to stay in the kingdom long term, because if you say you want to work and you're coming in with a tourist visa, then you're already on the wrong foot, because you can't work with a tourist visa. You can't. You have to change that. I'll explain that later in the course of the video. So once you get to the airport during the control check by the immigration, you have to state to them that you're here to travel as a tourist. That's where you get to explain your travel itinerary, what you intend to do in the country, and how long you intend to stay, because a tourist visa is valid for the first 60 days. After that, you have another 30 days renewal, which totals of 90 days in the kingdom. So when you've successfully passed immigration check, you're in the country. Out of the airport, there are lots of taxi services, even motorbikes, or what you call here in Thailand, tuk-tuk. You might get one from there to a nearby hotel. Normally, before booking your flight, in that your itinerary, you should be able to mention the hotel which you intend to stay in. So this is also important. Mention what hotel you want to lodge in. So if we are assuming that you have the hotel in mind which you intend to lodge in, then you get a taxi or a motorbike, tuk-tuk, from the airport. It takes you directly to your hotel. There you can stay and plan on how you intend to navigate yourself through the kingdom. And you have to be quite aware of the taxi fares. Even with motorbikes, you wouldn't want to be extorted and huge sum of money taken out from your wallet, because you are in the country to stay. You still have a long way to go. In a case where you wouldn't want to live in a hotel, a smart move is to contact friends. Again, before leaving your country to book that flight and route to Thailand, you have to be able to contact friends here. Those that are already living and working here, if you have a friend, then this friend of yours should be able to get to the airport and pick you up. In this case, you will have to lodge with your friend in his or her accommodation. So that is it, you're already in the kingdom. So what's next? The process of obtaining a job and changing your visa status. Once you're in the kingdom, you're well settled in. The next challenge starts: looking for a job. To obtain a job here as a teacher, you must have a formal qualification, a bachelor's degree, preferably in education. But if you don't have a degree in education, it's okay. You can still use another majors to work. But the point is, as long as you stay in the kingdom, maybe after 3, 4, or 5 years, you have to upgrade yourself to have a diploma in education. That way you'll be able to apply for a permanent teacher's license within the kingdom. So once you're in the kingdom, to obtain a job, you look at the qualification. If you're well qualified with a bachelor's degree or master's or doctor's degree, then you're set to start looking for a job. Get your CV ready. And if you intend to be a teacher, then there are ways in which you can get jobs here. If you don't want to move about, you can visit websites. There are lots of websites within the country that has a lot of teaching job adverts. You think of ajan.com. You might want to type this in: ajan, AJARN dot or full stop com, COM. In fact, that's one of the biggest job website within the country. If you search there, you will have a lot of opportunities. You will see different types of jobs, part-time, full-time, which you can apply for. And once you've been able to secure a job, you have to think of the interview process. Before we get to that, let me quickly state here that if you don't want to apply through the internet, then you might do walk-in application. You visit most of the schools around. Since you are new in the kingdom, normally you will need someone to guide you around. If there is nobody to guide you around there, I advise you spend time. Look at your area where you are, the city where you are living. Let's say you are in Bangkok. Go through your phones, search schools around where you are living. Look at a radius not far away from you, like within 10, 20, 15, or 10, 15, 20, or 30 kilometers away. Try to look at schools within this area. And of course, you think of what transportation means. you want to use to get to the school. Probably you like to hire a taxi that takes you there. So what you do is you map out schools within these areas, prepare your application. Let's say in a day you intend to visit 5 schools. Map out these 5 schools, prepare your CV, get a taxi or whatever means of transportation that you can afford, move to these schools and apply directly. If you are lucky, you might meet the boss or director in school, and he or she might interview you on spot, and you will know the result if you have the job or not. So that is to say, if you want to do working application, which is most advisable because you get to learn about the environment. So let's assume that you've successfully gotten a job, maybe after a week or two of search. Remember, you're on tourist visa, which has maximum 90 days. So let's say you spend 2 weeks in the case where you're very lucky. Some people are very lucky. Within the first week, they obtain a job. Others are not that lucky. You might end up spending all the 90 days looking for a job. So let's say you obtain a job as early as you could. Normally, that should be the ideal situation. The next thing you have to do is to change your visa status. You're on tourist visa, you can't work on that. So what do you do to change your visa status? Your employer has to provide a list of documents for you to take to the nearest Thai embassy. These documents are quite huge. Even myself living here for a long time, I can't successfully call out all the documents, but what I know for sure is it should contain your contract, copies of your passport, present visa status, your school's operation license from the government, your director's copy of his or her ID card, tax record, a lot of other stuff that the school has to provide for you. Remember, this is internal system, so whatever document they provide is in time. You might not know that as a first-time teacher in the kingdom, but that shouldn't be your worries. What should be important is that they give you the required documents. So at the end, they'll give you a chunk of documents that you have to take and fly out of the kingdom. Since you're already in Thailand, you wouldn't want to go back to Africa to obtain a non-B. You might want to think of nearby embassies like that in Malaysia. Malaysia is quite fast. If you go to Malaysia, you may have your visa within 2 or 3 days. But in other places like Vietnam, Laos, they have a much more strict measures for African applicants. Getting there, you might not have your visa on time as anticipated. Worst case scenario, you might end up staying there for 3 months. So preferably go to Malaysia. There to apply, you can either go to Philippines. People go to Philippines, Manila, the Thai embassy there you can. If not, since you're African, you may think to go to Nigeria, the Thai embassy in Nigeria. Apply there for a non-B. With the documents which you have, it states that you have obtained an employment. So normally you should be able to have a non-B and fly back into the kingdom. That's your second arrival into the kingdom. When you get at airport control, it wouldn't be difficult because they will see that you have changed your visa status. You have a full-time employment. So you're coming now to work in the country, which will be much more easier. But if they want to complicate situation, you can always call on your director or your school to put in words on your behalf. Once you obtain your non-B and you're in the kingdom, again, the non-B at the airport will give you the first 60 days, which is also extendable within 30 days. You have to obtain other documents within the country. Changing your visa status is not enough. Yeah, it's quite a hassle to be able to settle in the kingdom and work long term. What you have to do next with your school is to start the formal process of obtaining your work permit. And you can't get a work permit without a teacher's license. So the process starts within your province or your city where you intend to work, a jurisdiction of work. Your school has to contact the education office at your service area to send your documents there for them to acknowledge that you are a new teacher in the school and they've seen that you're qualified to work. So at the local education office, they will issue a letter which states that you have been employed by that school and they are aware of that. Your school will get this letter and forward it to Kurusapa. Kurusapa is a local word to describe Teachers Council of Thailand or Ministry of Education that is in charge of issuing licenses. So when they send this there alongside other documents, your qualification, if you are a non-native speaker, sometimes you might be required to take an English placement test to evaluate your ability, your proficiency in the language. There is TOEIC, test of English for international communication, sometimes IELTS. Normally you are expected to have a good score in any of these tests. Once you have that, it might take time. Maybe within the kingdom, if you have the money, you might apply for any of the tests before your documents are being processed and sent to CRUSAPA. So once it's there with the right qualification, it should be easy for your school to obtain a temporary teacher's license for you, which lasts for 2 years. Normally, CRUSAPA issue licenses to new teachers. It's known as temporary teacher's license, which allows you to stay and teach in the kingdom. And each of these license has a validity of 2 years. That is exactly 24 months. So once you obtain this again, when the license is completed, your school needs to take this license alongside another document that includes your contract and copies of your passport to your local labor office or regional bureau for you to apply for the work permit. There are also different requirements at the level of the labor office. The most important one here is your health check. They will expect you to go through formal health check, checking for syphilis, other stuff, and even security check, background check for CRUSAPA. Like, it varies from nationality to nationality. If you're African, there are different things that they might want to look at. If you're Europeans, there are different things that they might also want to look at. So background check, and of course health check to prove that you're physically sound and well to perform the duty of which you're being employed for. Your work permit application process at the level of the labor office shouldn't take more than, let's say, 1 week. Yeah. Normally, if it's fast, it's between 3 days to 1 week, so it shouldn't take more than 1 week. If it delays because of maybe minor problems in terms of your documents, then it might take 2 weeks. That is the second to the last step. Once you get your work permit, you're good to go to your local immigration office to extend your visa non-B for 1 year or for the duration of your contract. So once you've obtained the work permit, you have to go to the immigration alongside your director or whoever that is in charge of documentation at your new workplace. There you apply at your local immigration and they have to extend your visa for a year. They will also ask about your address, so take note. Like I said, if you arrive in Thailand, maybe a friend picked you up and you were living with a friend, you have to be able to give the friend's address, which will be in the immigration system. At least that way they know where you are living, and it's easy to follow up on your 90 days notification. For those of you that don't know, since it's your first time to be in the kingdom, 90 days notification here is simply a process where you go to the immigration to notify your address or to state that you're still living in the same place and you're still in the kingdom, you've not left. That's the whole essence of the 90 days notification stuff. And after that, once you leave with that visa, you're free to work in the kingdom and live as long as you can, depending on the contract, of course, because normally most contracts, school contract is between 9 months to 11 months, excluding the holidays period. Yeah. So once you live like that, you are able to live here a long time and enjoy the life in Thailand. And there is something I did not mention. You have to think of work permit fee is 3,100 Thai baht. Yeah, and most often employees are expected to pay for their work permit and visa costs. The visa is 1,900, so that sums up to 5,000 Thai baht. Once you've done all this, you're good to go to live and start enjoying and having fun in the kingdom. So that is it. The process might seem daunting, but I bet you, if you invest time in it, you will get to enjoy your stay in Thailand. Thanks for watching. I love you all. See you next time. Ciao.